You are experiencing the sports talk ministry and excellence that is the Lance Day Radio Show. I'm with StatManLex, also known as Gian Alexis. He has a very intriguing blog that I read, and he's been on the show a couple of times. He was part of our NBA Finals preview and coverage on Advent Sports Network. He has this blog where he does ratings, and I'm a list person. I like to rate, not just in sports, but in my personal life, what are the best 10 albums that I've ever heard, or who are the best 10 preachers that I've ever heard, or obviously when you get into the sports landscape, the best quarterbacks, the best baseball pitchers, the best all-time players in various sports. Always a very interesting discussion. Gian's always he always has a lot to say. He always has some really poignant and interesting topics to bring up. So I wanted to bring him back on the show to promote his blog, StatManLex.com. Check it out. It's an awesome blog. But I also wanted to talk to him about a specific list. Football, which football season has started. My team, the Colts, they suck. Ian's team sucks, even though they won tonight. They're not any good either. Giants. Jeremy Winston, who's also on the show, the Eagles suck. And I live in Seattle, and the Seahawks are 0-2. So between the four people mentioned, the four entities mentioned, I think that makes us a combined 1-8 for the season. So Alan Bozeman's on the show. He's a Browns fan. They're not even in the NFL. They're like a if this were the English Premier League, they would be relegated to the Class B League. So they're not even really a team. But I wanted to bring Ian on to talk about his list, which goes over the top 5 quarterbacks in the history of the NFL, and he's going to talk about his list and kind of explain why, and I'm kind of excited to hear and hoping that Peyton Manning is either at the top or very close to the top of that list, but curious to hear what he's going to say. So what's up, Gian?
Okay. I just want everybody to know that I used a few common measurables to kind of come up with these, my top 5 lists, which included completion percentage, your TD to interception ratio, the passer rating. Passer rating is kind of an old stat, but it's something that we have data from quarterbacks that played as far back as Johnny Unitas up to the present. Number of Super Bowl rings, number of MVP trophies.
But I take Peyton Manning down. So I guess he's not going to be on the top of the list for Super Bowl rings.
And then the last part was I threw in this to kind of was a curveball, which kind of made everything more clear, was Super Bowl MVPs. So when you did play in the Super Bowl and your team won, were you the MVP of that Super Bowl? And I mean, even though it's kind of slanted, that award is always kind of goes more to quarterbacks. It's still something that I thought gave it a nice little flavor. So let me just start from number 5. My number 5 on the list is a guy that never won a Super Bowl, Dan Marino. It's kind of hard to argue with this guy's stats. He was the first dude to ever throw for 5,000 yards in a season. He did it in 1984, and it took many years before people like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady did it more recently in the mid-2000s. But, yeah, Dan Marino, he's thrown for 420 touchdowns, which at the time was kind of the record, which has been surpassed. So recently. His passer rating was pretty solid, 86.4, and he won an MVP award. So I kind of have to give it to him. He's only fifth really on this list because he has no rings. I mean, he only made one trip to the Super Bowl his rookie year, and he lost. So next on the list, which might surprise some people, is number 4, Steve Young. Steve Young, people kind of sleep on this guy, but his completion percentage is kind of off the charts. 64.3%. His passer rating, 96.8. When Steve Young retired, his passer rating was actually the highest career passer rating of any quarterback to ever play the game. He appeared in 3 Super Bowls. I mean, he won all 3 of them. The Super Bowl where he was the MVP of, he threw for 6 touchdowns, which is kind of crazy when you think of on that grand a stage, somebody puts up 6 TDs. He won 2 MVP awards. So you kind of give it up to him. He only has about 232 touchdowns in his career, but that's really because he sat behind someone who's a little higher on the list, Joe Montana, for many years as his backup. Number 3.
Well, so let me jump in. So,
yeah, go ahead, man.
This is the Legendary Radio Show. I'm about to have an argument with Gian about his top 5 of quarterbacks. I was hoping we could get this done in one segment. I can tell you now that we're not going to get this done in one segment because I'm going to need further explanations. So let's get started with your 5th and 4th. Your 5th, Dan Marino, who's great, but your 5th quarterback on the list never won a Super Bowl. Only went to the Super Bowl once.
Yes.
So there's so many people because you know who you kind of have an idea who some of those top 3 are going to be. So let's name people that would be on the list. Peyton Manning,
okay.
Tom Brady, people that could potentially be on your list. You haven't revealed it yet. But Peyton Manning could be there. Tom Brady could be in there. Bradshaw could be up there. Unitas could be up there. Montana could be up there. Favre could be up there. So those are 6 people who I just named right off the top of my head that have a ring. So that's my first question. The second question, which is more important, you gave Steve Young credit for 3 Super Bowls, but he sat on the bench for 2 of those 3 Super Bowls. So he only actually played and won 1 Super Bowl. How can you be the 4th best quarterback in the history of the NFL if you were a backup half of your career? How is that possible?
If you're back up to Joe Montana, it's very possible. That's not his fault. I mean, the 49ers were stacked back then. Like, they literally had the 2 best quarterbacks, arguably, of that time on the same team. Like, there's nobody else that Steve Young would have been a backup to. Your second point, when you bring up other people, you can bring up other people like Johnny Unitas, whose career passer rating was 78.2. His career completion percentage was 54.6. I mean,
ouch. If
that's what you want to compare that Dan Marino to, because I have the numbers in front of me. Brett Favre, you want to call another one. This man has thrown 336 interceptions in his career. Are you being serious? 336.
Well, that's why you're StatManLex, because
there are people on this list that don't even have 300 touchdowns, and this man has 336 picks. He has thrown more picks than any other quarterback in NFL history. That automatically should disqualify him.
More touchdowns, too, until Manning just broke the record last year.
Yeah, but
he did also play in his defense. He did also play in the record for the most games started consecutively as a quarterback.
Yes.
So, I mean, he had longevity.
But I'm saying, which my point to you is, the only reason why he has that many touchdowns is because he's played longer than everybody else. I actually have more respect for Peyton Manning's number than I do his, being honest.
So interesting. So I'm going to assume based on what you just said that Favre is not in your top 3. Favre, and it would be difficult if I were to comprise my list, and that's why I asked you to be on the show and be a part of what we're doing here, because I know that you really crunch numbers, and I think of you're kind of a human algorithm. You have ways of coming to conclusions that are beyond the mental capacities of many.
And just another side note,
far with Marino though, that really sits kind of funny with me because Favre has one ring, he has multiple MVPs. He was still a very good quarterback up until he retired, so it's not like at the end he was an embarrassment or gimping around.
No.
Marino ahead of him that's interesting.
I mean, I'll say this also. People kind of, in football, it's harder to win a chip. Everybody should know that. And anybody that doesn't know that really doesn't know sports. So I can't fault some of these quarterbacks for being on teams where you have a bad GM and a bad owner who just chooses a direction of a franchise that's just not putting you in the best position to win year after year after year. So I can't fault some
Marino
people
had
for
Jimmy
that.
Johnson, though. Jimmy Johnson was Dan Marino's coach.
I mean, he had Shula before that.
Jimmy Johnson and Don Shula, who were two of the best coaches in NFL history.
What I'm saying is Marino never had an elite defense to play with on the other side of the ball, ever. They always were good offensively, but there was no defense to speak of. And the old adage says, defense, offense sells tickets, defense wins championships. So, I mean, I don't know what you kind of are expecting. And for me, honestly, that number 5 thing was the hardest thing I had to do. I mean, it's only literally a slight edge when we talk about Marino and Favre. Because Favre, if I'm going to be fair on my list, Favre would be like 5A. I mean, it's like Marino is 5, Favre's 5A, like slightly under, not, but I can't ignore the 336 career interceptions. Like, I can't look over that. As much as I want to and just say, and Favre went to the Super Bowl, he won, yay. But, I mean, he wasn't even the MVP, so I can't even really, it was more of a team thing. He was really on a really good team that featured Reggie White on defense.
Right.
Like, Dan Marino never had an elite defensive end on the team with him like that. You've got to be kidding. I mean, this guy, Favre, had a team that was loaded that year. I mean, Gilbert Brown in the middle, Santana Dotson. He had Leroy Butler. I mean, come on. Like, he had a great defense to back him up. It was a great team.
Bring out some of those old names. So, as I said at the beginning of this segment, Gian and I are not going to get to the end of this conversation this week, but you will be able to listen to the second half where Gian reveals his top 3. It will be on next week's Lance J Radio Show. Check out StatManLex.blogspot.com where he muses on similar lists like this that will get you riled up. He uses his own sabermetrics and various algorithms to compile who's the best, even though he seems to ignore some commonsensical aspects of rating greatness. But again, and I will continue this debate next week on the Lance J Radio Show, Advent Sports Network.
This is Michaela Arthur. Check out my show, Falcon Pride, where I cover all things sports for Pine Forge Academy on Advent Sports Network.
Wouldn't it be cool if the whole wide world knew what I know about you?
Excuse me, I just got to get through. I'm looking for my ball. This is golf.
Is this your ball?
Yes, it is.
It struck my foot.
Doug!
That's 2 thus far, shooter.
Oh, you can count. Good for you.
And you can count on me waiting for you in the parking lot.
You are listening to the Lance J Radio Show on Advent Sports Network.